New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset. A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. But instead, we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border?
A recent Daily Wire article discusses 3 so-called conspiracy theories that came true in 2024. Let's check it out. Now, you might be thinking, like I was when I first heard this, only 3? I'm sure we can go on. And if any of y'all are familiar with my channel here, you know I've rattled off on many an occasion of so-called conspiracy theories that came to fruition in more recent years. There's a common joke online that says the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality is only a couple of weeks. Amen to that. Or I'll even say a couple of years in some situations. That principle proved true in 2024, as always. Now, let me know. Comment down below, y'all. Let me know how many conspiracy theories, other than the ones mentioned in this article, that you've seen come true over the past, let's just say 8 years since Trump came into office, Joe Biden's administration, up until now. How many can you think of? I know I can think of a couple. COVID, the origins of COVID. People were told that it came up naturally. And there was a lady on Tucker Carlson, a lady from China, who said she believed that COVID was invented in a lab. And there were multiple articles in the mainstream media saying that that was a complete conspiracy theory. Lo and behold, a few months, if not years later, come to find out that's exactly what went down. Throughout the past year, the media constantly jumped into quote-unquote fact-check conservatives by downplaying concerns about Joe Biden's health. The presence of Venezuelan illegal gangs in the United States, and claiming any concerns about FEMA not helping conservatives were unfounded. As usual, the media were proved to be very wrong on each of those issues. So here are the 3 biggest conspiracies that ended up coming true in the last year. Number 1, in no particular order, I'm assuming, Biden will drop out and another candidate will take his place. Even before he became president, conservatives were drawing attention to Biden's declining mental acuity and physical struggles. Now, I can definitely vouch for that. I know that there were quite a few times early on in 2019, 2020, where I said, this dude is clearly diminished. He's showing signs of physical weakness. He's showing signs that he's not as sharp as he was years ago. Clear mental decline. But what were we told? Oh, that's just some weird right-wing conspiracy. We're told that time and time again. I wonder if these guys get tired of being wrong all the time, and then they wonder why people stop watching them. As Biden's presidency began, these concerns continued to percolate amongst conservatives throughout Biden's stumbles and falls and slurring speech. The legacy media largely downplayed these concerns, and some even said that he was in the best condition of his life. I've said it before, quote, I've said it for years now. He's cogent, unquote. MSNBC's Joe Scarborough said in March 2024, quote, but I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been, intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. Wow. Have these dudes no shame, like straight up? Because now with that Wall Street Journal bombshell. I'm just throwing it out there because that's what everybody says. But that literally was a bombshell article that came out and talked about how the staff literally hid his mental decline early on in his presidency. But again, many of us were onto it. And I honestly believe you would have to be intentionally ignorant to not be able to see that Joe Biden was clearly diminished. Or you just don't pay attention. Maybe you're just not political like that. But if you paid any amount of attention to the way he spoke, how he walked, how he held his hands, how he would just stare off into space, he was confused. He struggled to walk on and off stage. I've been around enough old people throughout my life, my Army career as a medic in the Army. I worked in the Army hospital. I worked on an orthopedic unit for a while. We dealt with a lot of retirees. And I learned very quickly, very early on, how to identify dementia or Parkinson's disease and things like that. You can just tell by the way he moved that he was, and he articulated or attempted to articulate that he was clearly dealing with some issues. But again, we were told that this is just some big old conspiracy and that there was nothing to see. But let me just say this real quick. But for Joe Scarborough to say that he was the sharpest he's ever seen intellectually and analytically, like, did he really mean that? I mean, honestly, did he really mean that? Because that is the height of foolish. That is so ridiculous. I want to know what he said in response to that Wall Street Journal article. I'm about to look that up. Despite the media ignoring Biden's mental state, many conservatives still believe that Biden would be replaced by another candidate by the time the election rolled around. This belief was labeled as a conspiracy theory by NBC News. In October 2023, NBC ran a headline saying Republicans float a quiet conspiracy theory. They love that. They love throwing it out there with no basis. And that's another thing they love to throw out. Republicans floated a quiet conspiracy theory that Biden won't be on the ballot. Wow. Quote, though no incumbent president has declined to seek a second term since Lyndon Johnson in 1969, there is an unfounded observation among a faction of the political right that goes something like this. Democratic power brokers will intervene at the last minute and replace a weakened 80-year-old Biden with someone else as the party's nominee. The outlet reported, wow. I mean, man, these dudes, how prophetic was this? I mean, not prophetic in the biblical sense of the word, but the fact that these guys were really able to see the writing on the wall. And these other people were trying to make it seem like, no, dude is completely cogent. I tell y'all over and over again, why many of you or some of y'all who may be listening continue to follow the mainstream media is beyond me. They have no idea what they're talking about. They can get some stories right, but when it comes to anything that's political, they have a clear bias, and that bias frames and taints everything that they say. The outlet added that the theory was not a mainstream thought within the Republican Party, but it has maintained a persistent foothold amongst a relevant chunk of the GOP base, taking their cues from some party officials who continue to toy with the idea. I think Vivek Ramaswamy was one of the main ones who spoke about this. I think he threw that idea out on more than one occasion. I didn't really know what to make of it, but I didn't think it was totally impossible considering Joe Biden's condition. Just months later, this quote-unquote unfounded conspiracy theory came true shortly after a disastrous debate, and that's an understatement, performance in June of 2024 against Donald Trump. During the debate, Biden's decline was broadcast for all to see as he delivered raspy and mumbling answers. 3 weeks later, y'all, 3 weeks later, Biden announced he was dropping out of the race, saying he would be endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, before we move on there, I honestly believe he was forced out. Who knows? Maybe under a threat of some form. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they threatened him, but I think he was forced out. And I heard recently he was still under the impression that he could have beaten Donald Trump. Now, if there was anything that proved that this man was delusional, that last comment should be enough. Two, Venezuelan gangs are taking over U.S. cities. After videos emerged of reported gang violence being perpetrated by members of the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua in Colorado, legacy media figures and political officials rushed to downplay fears about the gang activity. The situation exploded onto the national scene after Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky warned that gang members had taken over apartment complexes in the area. Video later showed armed men walking through an Aurora apartment building with guns drawn and entering an apartment after knocking on the door. Despite the footage, Colorado Democratic Governor Jared Polis's office called the, quote, purported invasion is largely a feature of Danielle Jurinsky's imagination. The media also pushed back on the concerns after Trump's campaign amplified the warning, alluding to concerns as rumors, and accused them of making, once again, quote unquote, false claims about the situation. Man, they love throwing that out there all the time. I don't know how many times they offer retractions when they're wrong. I haven't seen any lately. However, the concerns appeared to be validated earlier this month after the Aurora PD detained 19 suspected illegal alien gang members from Venezuela at an apartment complex. Police said that more than a dozen armed gang members accosted a male and female victim at the edge at Lowry Apartments and forced them into different units at the complex. This came after ABC News correspondent Martha Raddatz pushed back on the Trump campaign, telling Vice President-elect J.D. Vance that the, quote, incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes. Man, I remember saw that. Matter of fact, I have a video. I'm not sure if it's out yet. It may be out by the time you see this, but I have a video where, and if so, I'll attach it right here, where they're discussing that whole thing, and she's literally trying to downplay it, acting like it wasn't that big a deal. The mere fact, and I say in that video as well, the mere fact that we had illegal alien gangs coming here thanks to Joe Biden's open border policy and Kamala Harris, as the borders are, taking over apartment complexes, and they were trying to downplay it. Again, politics, untrustworthy mainstream media outlets, completely untrustworthy. Quote, Martha, do you hear yourself? Vance responded, only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Bingo, he nailed it. And throughout the whole video, she's constantly trying to downplay it. It is now reported that members of Tren de Aragua are active in at least 19 states across the country. Now, of course, somebody might say, well, they're not taking over U.S. cities. Of course not. But are they impacting various cities, almost 20 cities across the country? And is that not the biggest concern? Is that not a problem? What should be the focus? Should it be playing political patty cake with the Democrats, or should it be reporting the truth to us as American citizens? I'll let you decide that one. And number 3, FEMA is discriminating against Trump supporters. Shortly after Hurricanes Helene and Milton devastated the Southeast, fears began circulating that federal authorities were slow-walking their response because of conservative political leanings of many of the victims. In Roan Mountain, Tennessee, for example, locals told the Daily Wire it took nearly 2 weeks for FEMA to show up. The town is located in Carter County, which voted 81% for Trump on Tuesday. Trump was especially critical of the federal response, arguing that his supporters were being targeted. Quote, I'll be there shortly, but don't like the reports that I'm getting about the federal government and the Democrat governor of the state going out of their way to not help people in Republican areas, Trump said. Outlets like the New York Times were quick to jump in and again, quote unquote, fact check Trump for his quote unquote false claims. FEMA Administrator Dean Criswell responded, I'm not sure, it could be Deanne, I can't remember, responded to the concerns by calling them completely incorrect. Quote, it's frankly ridiculous and just plain false. This kind of rhetoric is not helpful to people, Criswell said. It's really a shame that we're putting politics ahead of helping people. And that's what we're here to do. I think the way that was worded didn't go in her favor. Just weeks later, Trump proved to be correct after the Daily Wire reported that a FEMA supervisor in Lake Placid, Florida, ordered relief workers to, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump. Now, they may argue, I think that there was allegations that there were some of the individuals, the homeowners, the victims of the hurricane were making threats or being hostile. Who knows? But one thing you would have to consider, your entire life has been turned upside down by these hurricanes, and you are having FEMA slow walk trying to help, barely coming in, barely doing anything for you. So you can understand why somebody might be upset, or just the fact that their whole lives that have been turned upside down. I would expect to see and hear some pretty passionate, maybe even hostile or angry people. And I think that the officers, the FEMA workers, should take that into consideration. Now, I'm speaking, I don't know all the details. The fact that they first tried to deny it, but then come to find out that there was actual evidence proving that to be the case, again, can't trust these folks, y'all. This directive led to at least 20 homes being skipped over as relief workers offered help to Hurricane Milton's victims. FEMA responded to the Daily Wire's report by firing the employee who issued the guidance and claiming the incident was isolated. But I recall the employee who was fired, she made her rounds on various news outlets claiming that, no, I got this. This was handed down to me. I don't know whatever came about that whole situation, but I know she made a big thing saying that, no, I got this from above. This wasn't my own opinion. Criswell was also called to testify to Congress about the incident and request an inspector general investigation into the guidance. Since that time, more whistleblowers have alleged similar misconduct by FEMA in both Georgia and North Carolina. Again, y'all, I mean, I don't know what to tell y'all. I don't know what to say to make it any more clear. I mean, you can't get any more clear than this. Pay attention to what's going on. Just because these media outlets tell you something is a conspiracy doesn't make it so. Anything related to COVID, there were so many things related to COVID that were called conspiracy theories. What was the issue when it came down to the heart? There were some young men who were having heart issues related post-vaccine. And initially that was alleged to be a conspiracy theory. Hunter Biden's laptop, they said it had all the hallmarks of Russian misinformation, but what did we find out? Joe Biden actually said that. And then what did we find out? That it was his laptop. And Joe actually stated that he had no communication with Hunter regarding any of his business transactions, but there are emails and I think there might even be voicemail messages where they were communicating and talking back and forth about business-related things. But of course, this Biden-led DOJ did absolutely nothing about it. They didn't do anything whatsoever. So again, where's the trust? So time and time again, y'all, these people show you who they are by the fact that they're willing to lie completely in order to promote an agenda. But the big question is, what are you going to do with it? You have this information. Watch multiple videos of mine, especially lately, where I address these issues. It's right there, right in front of your face. I think I have multiple videos where I'm addressing the problems, and I'll put one right here. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and check out this video right here where we go into a lot more detail as to the media and all the problems and why they are completely untrustworthy. I'll see you over there.